So talk about, the tendency, kind of back to this idea of leadership styles and how you manage things. And how do you determine what your tendency is and then how to work against those things that maybe are going to work against you?
For me, management style has been an ever-growing process or ever-changing for me. I feel that every year I get to be a better manager and total control freak. 10 years, I had to have my hands in everything. I mean, somebody walked through the office talking about a project or a problem, and I'm up out of my chair, and I'm through the door, and I'm fixing it for them. I'm just constantly going through that. To jump back to what Rich was saying about letting people gather the information and try to come back with some solutions has worked well for me over the last 5 years. And also empowering people to make decisions. When you're a control freak, you tend to shut them off, and now they're afraid to make a decision because you weren't there to make it for them, or at least nod your head.
So sometimes it's better to lead by asking questions or giving answers.
Well, I think we all know what the textbook's going to tell us. And the textbook's going to tell us it's better to lead by asking questions, which is really hard for a control freak situation, I think. I do believe that when you get to the point that you realize you're not the only person that can do every job, and truly realize that, and you're not the only person that can be the best at a job, and we all say that's really easy to do, but practicing it is a different area. Once you get to that point, and you start to trust people, and then you have the common thing you're going to hear about having a safe work environment and safe zones where people are able and willing to talk up, and where people are willing to make those mistakes, and they know they're not going to be hung out to dry because of it. I think that changes that. So sitting there quiet and not saying anything oftentimes is far more impactful to your team than asking a question or leading with an answer. And so for me, that's probably the thing that I have to practice the most is, sitting on my hands and sitting on my mouth. You do a lot more good when you hear more than when you speak more. And so I think that's certainly critically important. And I compliment John because I've seen what's happened in the last 5 years since, we've known each other and worked on different projects and various things. And without a doubt, I think, it's a hard process to go through, especially when families involved. It's extremely difficult. So.
Especially when you're wife's involved.
Yeah. I just know the boys. I didn't even know about the other side. So don't call me on that one. I have no experience. But there was one area that I think, I would just add, and I think you hear us talk a little bit about how do you allow people to move up. I think one of the key things that we talk a lot about, and my team gets tired of hearing it from me, is we use VST. And I've got a handout that we're going to give you at the end, and we have a pyramid that is vision, strategy, and tactics. And on that pyramid are the tasks associated with vision, the tasks associated with strategy, and the tasks associated with tactical execution. And on the axis next to it is all the different job descriptions. And our team gets an understanding of when you're in your role or when you're trying to move to your next role, how much of your time should be spent in those different categories. So if we talk about a lawn care technician, probably 90% of his day is going to be fixed around what? Tactical execution. He's going to have some strategy associated with it because, he might have 25 customers to visit. He's got some call first in there. He's got to work around traffic. Might have to sneak off to the dentist during the day. So there's some strategy in his day, but the bulk of it is tactical, right? Well, if you're a supervisor, where do you fit in there? And I think the key is we can sit here and talk about moving to the next level of your business. But if you don't know what those tasks are that you should be spending your time on to get to that next level, you can talk about it all you want, but you gotta make sure you know what that means. And so if it's talking about the vision or the strategy, John talks about we may just be a snow removal company, in the next 3 to 5 years. he better be spending a fair amount of his time thinking about what that really means. You know, and that's what his team should be allowing him to do. So, you know, I think that vision, strategy, tactics, and knowing what it means and where your time should be spent is real critical in trying to get to that next level that we sort of heard everybody ask about. So.
Okay. So, Rich, you've mentioned a lot of things that kind of around people. Okay. And obviously, we're a people business, it's a service business. Tell me the difference in your mind between good people and the right people, or is there a difference?
I'd say that, you know, the good person is the person who shows up and works from 7 to 5, but they don't show up at 6:45. They don't stay till 5:15 to get it done. The right person for me is that person that spends a little extra time and comes to me in the morning presenting the solution of the problem they had the day before and goes home and thinks about it. So they're also the person that comes into me and wants to know how to do the paperwork or something weird like that. My right-hand guy right now, Chris, he was going to school in Alabama for a degree in architecture. Worked for a summer up in Vail with me, stayed the next summer and said, you know what, I'm not going to go architecture anymore. I want to work in the landscape business. I want to be your office manager. I was hired that position. He helped me with the books and QuickBooks, and we learned it together some through there. So it's the right person is the person that wants to help themselves grow within landscape technology group, but also the industry. And that's the type of person I try to hire. I work really hard doing internship programs every year. That interns that have got Louisiana, Alabama, University of New Hampshire, Boston University, Utah, BYU, Cal Poly, and the amount of people that have come and now search out landscape technology group from a previous student working with us is really neat and interesting through there. So the right person is somebody who wants to grow, and I feel on that company to let them grow, but also stay beyond me at the right time too.
So, kind of staying on that same line, Scott, talking about people. So as your company has grown, you were the only employee, and now I don't know how many employees you have, a bunch. How does the communication strategy change? How critical is the communication? Make sure everybody understands what's going on. What do you communicate? I'm just curious, kind of how you look at communication.
Communication has always been probably one of the keys to the success of any organization, whether it's the flow and having a flow chart to know who is accountable to whom and what the chain of that communication wants to be, to having, like you said, the open mind or safe places and an open door policy within our organization where I'm always available to any of our team members, whether it's one of my leadership staff, or if it's the laborer who I make it a priority to know each of them and to be able to have some kind of knowledge and relationship. I have 40 employees, and so it's not huge. It's like getting to know each of you all in this room. It's not overwhelming. Tom, it would be a lot more difficult for you to be able to go out and have 17 different Chris's. I have 4, and it's hard enough to distinguish them sometimes, right? And so, it can be a challenge, but I think it's really, in a company of my size, an important piece to have that familiar type of relationship. And I like to have that trust level that I think is an important part of the buy-in to the vision of the company. And if somebody, I like to think that our culture within our organization is one that is where our team can engage with all different levels of our leadership, and having the buy-in at different levels, whether it's in a supervisor's level or a operations manager's level or a crew leader's level. all of these guys have to be able to be safe and have the trust that what they bring to the table is on.
So, John, talk a little bit more about it. While you're thinking about it, I'll tell you guys a quick story. So, with our company, we have offices in Colorado, Utah, and California. And I was out on a job, it's probably been a year and a half ago. There's a gentleman there running the job, we're doing some asphalt work, and I'm chatting with him, I've never met him before. He's a third generation asphalt guy, which I thought was kind of cool in itself. His grandfather and his father both paved, as he put it, half of Northern California. I said, yeah, Northern California, where? He said, oh, Petaluma. I said, yeah, I know where Petaluma, I go by there all the time. I said, you go out there? I said, yeah, I go to our offices out there. And he said, we have offices in California? He went, get it. This guy doesn't even know we have 5 offices in California. How can this happen? And that's the reason I asked the question. I mean, I think the communication piece is significant. And the larger you grow and the more you get out of the field, the harder it becomes. So John, talk a little bit more about maybe how you guys are structured communication in your business.
Communication just in general is probably the most important piece of our business. It affects so many things. We communicate weekly meetings with the front line. Sometimes it's more than that before storms, building up for a snow event and then after a snow event. We have all of our hand shoulders in it. We're asking, what went wrong, what went well, tell us about the storm, They may have only been out 4 hours, but that sense of team building that they pull out of that, knowing that everybody in the company cares about how that storm went for them, what they need, what the site needs, what we need to share with the property manager. Those little things, like I say, are just such a team building event that they don't even know they're attending. Beyond that, being able to communicate the level of service that each site, each property is going to receive. And about the ins and outs about the company, things that the people don't even know that we offer, we do, or the amount of additional properties they never see. We'll handle 60-some commercial properties. Our employees will only see 4 to 8 vehicles on the store. So sharing that information with them, sharing with them the locations of all these properties and property managers and services. I can't elaborate on communication.
So interesting, both of them said it's about the most important thing they do in the business. Talk a little bit more about
It breaks away so easily.
different challenges with 250 employees.
We talk about, can you have too many meetings? I think the answer is absolutely yes. Your meetings have to have purpose, they have to have clarity, people have to understand. It's sort of like, one of the things we do is, as an example right now in this environment, this is sort of a giving of information situation, right? And so oftentimes we'll go to our meetings, we'll say, hey, today's meeting's not gonna be a two-way meeting, and we'll set that expectation on the front end, because otherwise people wanna talk and you don't really give them an opportunity to talk because you're dropping stuff on them. Set that expectation so they know that on the front end, so they don't walk away frustrated. And so what we clearly have, there's Death by Meetings is a great book out there. If you haven't read it, it'll kill you if you're a big meeting person initially. But we have lots of meetings. I can tell you it's pretty exciting when you have people who after a period of time come to the company and go, I know more about your company than the company I left that I worked for 10 years and I've only been here a year. And that's really neat. I think it confirms the fact that share that information with them, set that time aside and understand that. So we do a tremendous amount of communication, but we try to make sure that every meeting we have has some form of definitive purpose or some form of at least an outline. The meeting might not have any purpose, but at least if everybody comes to that, you go, hey, this one's just a brainstorming one. We're just going to throw stuff up on the wall, see what sticks, write it down, get back to you on it. So I think that's important. The other thing that we have, and this is Rudy Giuliani's got a great book on what happened after 9/11, and he talks about honest truths. And I think our industry, we were talking about it yesterday. We're having our potluck on Friday, which is sort of our annual, past, present, future type review, state of the company situation. And I don't know if anybody saw, Tim Allen and Santa Claus over Christmas and Mother Nature standing out there. And I was like, we need to have Mother Nature standing in the corner. Because this year, Mother Nature did more to us at the wrong time than we ever have had happen in probably my total career. I see Hans shaking his head, so at least I get some confirmation. 8 snowstorms, 8 weeks in a row on Tuesday, starting March 2nd. I mean, it raises the hair on my arms. Financially and performance-wise, we are in the worst situation we have been in a company in our history since I've been at the company. Now, what does that mean to us? We're back here, we're on the top, you're on the top of your company, you're freaking out. What did it mean to those team members who are getting 10 hours of work a week? A lot of the guys in the snow business I know never really got to move much snow because it really didn't amount to much. You might have worked some sand work. So we talk about honest truths, which comes out of this book, and we really try to communicate to people, hey, this is where we see things, this is what's going on. For the first time in our history, because of that situation, what we heard from people is, we're not making our bills. We've always had a rule. We're not a payday Friday business. We just can't be. Because, I've had enough of that back up over my 30 years in being in business. But for the first time, we offered draws against pay, to try to retain people and help them get through this situation. Now, thank goodness we had the reserves on hand to get us through the situations. So I think honest truths is really important when you communicate to people. Knowing what the purpose of your meetings are, and letting people know that helps you get through that communication situations. But we definitely have lots of meetings at our organizations.
Okay, so you talk about honest truths. I have a friend who's CEO of a very large company, international company, and he always tells his people, facts are our friends. And it's interesting, a lot of times we don't want to deal with the facts. We would rather make assumptions. And if I asked you guys, are you making money on this, that, or the other? How many of you could give me a spreadsheet to prove it? Or how many of you would say, intuitively, I'm pretty sure we are because I got money left. Right? Or my cash flow's fine, but if it stops, I got a problem. So that idea of facts and honest truths, I think is an interesting thing. So Rich, let's go kind of the next level. You and I were having this conversation out of the lobby a little while ago. We were talking about this idea of strategic planning, budgeting, job costing, understanding how all those things make a difference, accountability. So maybe talk a little bit about that, because I think those are tools. If you want to talk about tools to help you move out of the field, you have to develop tools for people to use, right? So talk a little bit about that.
I guess it was 98 when I started Landscape Technology Group. I knew landscape, but I knew horticulture, but I didn't really know a lot about business. I was involved in ALCC, was on the board through then and on a bunch of different committees. But what I did realize at that time, whenever you talk to people and you're starting up a business, you better know your banker, you better know your lawyer, you got an advisor. So we were working with a advisor with ALCC, and I had that person come and help me on the business end. It was really interesting because what we started to do, the first meeting was, okay, Rich, you're a person of one. You just started up your business. How much money can you possibly make this year? I don't know. What are you going to charge an hour? Well, I don't know. Well, how many hours are you going to work? Well, I don't know. He goes, tell me, you work 2,000 hours? You charge $45, 90 grand, that's it. Or you're going to go and sell materials too. I guess I can. You can make 20% off your materials, 10% off your materials, 40% off your materials. Well, if I work $90,000 in income, but I sell $100,000 to install, and I'm making 50% cost of goods, that's another 50 grand. You want to be in the maintenance business? Construction business. Construction sounded great then because I was making more money. And all of a sudden, though, maintenance, when you start to look at different divisions, kicks some pretty good butt too, when you're looking at different levels. But what he helped me do was to form budgets, not only for then a construction division, based on the amount of people you'll have working with me, but also a maintenance division, how many lines are going to mow, how many, hours are they going to work, can they do that many square feet in 1 week physically? We broke down all these different scenarios to 3 different scenarios. The ideal scenario, the mediocre scenario, and the worst case scenario. I have to say, I only had to work off the worst case scenarios even as I was growing the last 2 or 3 years. We were working off of growth for a long period of time, and it was fun. And that's the other thing we were talking about out there, is I had a lot of fun my first 10 years in business. The last 3 just sucked. But I knew they were coming as soon as they were coming. You know, with all the spreadsheets we had just set up, all of a sudden you have 4 people on a crew making income, and that goes down to 3. Can you afford your Bobcat anymore? It's only sitting half the time. Can you afford buying the aerator if you're only aerating 10 days a year, or you want to rent it? And we just had all these deep conversations. And I was fortunate that this advisor, I was up in Aspen at the time, and he'd come up out of Denver and spend the weekend with us. So we'd work all night long. I've got to pick up my kids out of school here, sorry. It's my alarm usually to do that. So we would come up and we'd work on Friday and Saturday nights, but on Saturday days we'd go on a hike somewhere and just talk about spending personal time and what you want to do too. So it's just kind of interesting if you get the right advisor and you go through several of them like you're saying, and you get the right one, they help you figure out your business, they help you figure out your personal end a little bit as well. But if you don't know where your numbers are gonna be or could be, that's when you just have to take a step back, and that's the value of the plan and budget, and where things can go very right and where things can start to go off track. And that's when you have your neighborhood meetings or monthly meetings or weekly meetings of just how did we do this week? Could we have done better, or did we miss the target? And it's a lot of review, but if you don't know where it is to start with, you're just going down a wrong trail and you don't even know it.
Scott, what about you?
For me, I think it was coming to my senses about my own stubborn ways and being much more open-minded to having a very talented team around me who were very capable of performing at a very high level, even though it might not be exactly how I might have had it done. And having a great result and being successful as a result.
Okay. So we'll have time for maybe just 3 or 4 questions from the group. If you think of something, I'll give you a second to think about that. I'll ask these guys one more question, run down the line while they're doing that. If you're thinking about something you might want to add that I missed, because I'm sure I did miss something. So what's the biggest challenge you're facing right now? At the level you are in your business, wherever that is, that you guys are actually all at different levels of business. Where are you now? What's your biggest challenge to go forward?
From a growth opportunity, Tom touched on it, is finding qualified individuals to be able to perform the often very complex tasks that my company performs, from an installation point of view.
Qualified people, that for us it doesn't necessarily mean somebody with landscape experience or snow experience, but it's finding the people with the right motivation that will fit our team, hiring slowly.
Which is like something Tom and I talked about, which is hiring for culture, right? Yeah, somebody that fits.
I think you're gonna hit the theme. You know, the greatest challenge for us is growing and developing people. You know, you can hear me talking packets. I guess we live in packets of comments, but you know, we have recruiting, retention, development is one of our major initiatives right now. And so as opportunities come our way, we need to make sure that we're keeping that initiative of recruiting, retention, development really high on our list, and we're allocating as many resources as we can afford to allocate while everything else is pulling on resources, new phone system, new truck, you know, new this, new that, that we keep and continue to invest in recruiting, retention, development. I think it's absolutely massive, not only for our industry, but a tremendous amount of them. And while the economy continues to be good, we're all being forced to play in the global workforce. You know, we're competing against the Walmarts of the world, even though they may only be giving people 30 hours a week, they're giving them a whole bunch of other stuff. You know, I just visited with a friend of mine yesterday whose daughter got hired on, you know, by the Marriott Corporation. She got a 4-year degree from CSU, she did a non-paid internship, they recruited her right out of school, and, you know, she's been through 3 levels of promotion in like 6 months, and they're willing to give her, you know, pay for 2 years worth of schooling for her to go into further in her degree in the hospitality industry. How are we going to compete against that? You know, that's going to be extremely difficult. We now have a full-time recruiter on staff. We have a full-time training coordinator on staff. I recognize you all can't do that depending on your size, but there's got to be something out there that we have to do in order to build people up and grow them. That's it. That's our restriction. It's clearly people, and, you know, thank goodness the H-2B decision's there, and those of us who participate are gonna get some H-2B people back, because with our H-2B staff this year, you know, we would have been extremely hurt. We figured 2 years ago, when we didn't bring our people because of the court situation that was going on, you know, in our case, we figured we lost $1.5 million to $2 million worth of revenue because we just couldn't deliver. And we told our customers that, we cut our delivery dates off. And it's all about people, and it is going to be huge, and it's going to be extremely competitive. So raise your prices so you can pay your people more. I didn't say that,
I'd say our biggest problem too is the frontline labor force of the trained technician. We've been involved in the H-2B program since pretty much the beginning of my company, when I went and asked the guys, you know, who here is legal or not legal, and then I got my first audit, and everybody came back needing additional information. So I made the decision in '99 to figure out how to do H-2Bs. They're the most valuable people to us. And I hire college kids all the time. We're in Vale. Our toughest problem is, you know, we're seasonal, and we're a 6-month seasonal business, not a 8-month season or a 9-month season when you may be down here. So I need people to work hard 6 months. The college crew and stuff, they come in for 3 or 6 months. And that's been difficult, and I need the stability. To me, the stability has been the H-2B program. Without the middle management or the year-round people, I feel they're out there. We do a good job recruiting and going to the career fields and such to get that type of person. But, you know, the H-2B wasn't there, we were hurting quite a bit.
Okay. Any questions you want to add to this?
I have questions about, I don't know if there's really a definitive answer for this, but obviously this is a very small company, and one of the reasons that the owner of our company continues to have to work in the field is because of the high turnover, because, well, manual laborers who stick with it are just hard to find, or people who are motivated to do quality work are pretty hard to find. What are some maybe tips that you can give us on how to identify people who have the motivation and the quality of people who are worth keeping versus people who just want to get that paycheck and, you know, work the minimum amount and do the minimum amount of work to get paid. I think to get where my boss wants to be with our company, we have to be able to have him doing more, you know, more kind of office management type of work instead of working his ass off, you know, 9 months out of the year. I think the only way we're going to get there is by having people working under us who need less supervision, who, you know, really want to be there and stay there. So as far as the hiring process goes, you know, how do you find those people, and how do you get people motivated to come in? You know, besides just offering more money.
You know, I can give you a little bit of insight on one of the things that I think was extremely effective for our organization. And, you know, if you attend different meetings and various things, you hear about the tools, the personality trait tools that are out there, Myers-Briggs. We happen to use a tool called PDP, Performance Dynamics Predictor. There's a variety of those out there. DISC is another system. You might ask yourself the question, should I buy a new mower or should I invest in a personality trait tool? My recommendation is invest in a personality trait tool, embrace it, use it, believe in it, and you'll need less mowers. And so that's at least been effective for us. It's not only great in identifying who to bring into the organization, because it looks at who your successful people are, identifies those traits, tells you who they are. Just as Scott was saying, he's got a nice cache of customers that can afford the services, no different than when you go out and look for customers, you look for like people, and that's what you're looking for. So I would certainly investigate one of those tools, and I think you'll get a great return. The other part of most of those tools is that they identify the difference between John and I and how John and I communicate. And if you then take those to your team members, they understand that when we sit down to have a conversation that might be a difficult conversation, I know how to prepare myself to go into that meeting. So instead of being high dominant, I'm going to go in and yell, you know, I might move into my extroversion mode and listen for a little bit. And so I would certainly suggest that we've had great success with utilization of those tools.
A labor level, which I don't know if that's what you're talking about, mainly entry level. We, on average, will do a formal interview of up to 30 people to hire one. I mean, that's the trend this year. So I could talk or think about a formal interview process. We used to 10 years ago. Pretty much if they showed up and filled out an application, you know, we put them on and they were in the passenger seat of the truck and they were working. So now there's a lot more thought given to that, and typically it'll be at least with 2 individuals from the company that they're interviewing with. So that may help you out.
Yeah.
I think the retention value is the difficult part of that. So as John alluded to, we can get people to come in, fill out an application and put them on the ground. But quite often they aren't going to stay unless they have a relationship with somebody that's already within the organization, has been part of our highest retention. But once they're there, for me, as I alluded, was the culture of our company, and that is developing a personal relationship with them and having them feel that you care about them. And that, for me, I think has been the best resource that I've been able to have, is developing the cultural organization that everybody is an important player in my organization all the way through.
It's a good question. And I'll add something to that as well. Because you touched on it, Scott, the development of the relationship. They already have a relationship within the organization. That does help. We actually incentivize our people to bring in their friends and family or whatever. About the 15th of August, we sit down with our recruiting people. And we started a couple large projects. It's about to be snow season. We need CDL drivers. We needed 130 people by November 1 from almost the end of August. So, and most of those were field level folks. It's a huge challenge. So it's not just for a small business. I mean, we face it too. And you would have loved to be in the room when the recruiting people saw the numbers. They added them all up. And one of them finally went, 130 people? What are you talking about? So, but that's just one of the ways we've used this. So, question.
Yeah, another question. So in doing like business valuations for buy-sell transactions, I come across business owners who are surprised by the key man discount, meaning that a company whose value and relies on key people takes a big haircut. So if the company's worth $1 million, but the owner's right in the middle doing all the tasks, you can take like a 30-40% haircut. So my question is to you guys, what are your guys' thoughts on how you guys build a business without it relying on key people? So it's self-sustaining, so you're not self-employed, but you actually have a business that won't collapse if you disappear.
Yeah, that's kind of a tough question because I think no matter where I'm at, there's got to be a key person running that. So I'm slowly phasing myself out. Scott alluded to personal planning, and I've gone through that for myself. I know what day I will exit the CEO role and become an advisor to the company. I'm not ready to retire. I don't know if I'll ever be, but I've started the transition 2 years ago to start putting my oldest son in that position to where he's the face. And will he be 100% by the time I exit? I don't know, but he will be in that position. But now he's the key man, he's the face. I think anytime you're in a smaller company, you're going to have it.
Person who acquires my company doesn't want me there. They're gonna be a bigger company, they're gonna already have some systems in place, and hopefully some of the systems we have will mold right into their company. I think is gonna be my solution to that. I don't think it's gonna be an employee up type of buy, it will be an external person that already has the puzzles in place, and we're one of the missing pieces for their bigger picture.
I might add a couple things. We're equity owned, so we buy companies. We don't really worry as much about that one person as we worry about staff. Is there a consistent management staff? The one person, if I don't have a guy that's ready to run it, we don't buy it. So to your point, a lot of times we do an employment agreement, 2-year, 3-year employment agreement. We might even change their role. We bought a guy in Northern California. He was running the entire business, doing everything, doing a couple $1 million a year. The minute we bought it, he didn't manage anybody. He was a salesperson, and he sold enhancement work, and was very successful doing it. So he was still there for that accountability question when the client calls and says, "Well, I've talked to you before." So he was still there, but we were able to move him into another role. So there's a lot of ways you can work around that. That's just one of 5 or 6 ways you can probably do that. You don't always get it.
And I think maybe you're asking from an advisor position to people selling, is that
Yeah,
where
and
you're
just
coming from? Is
I think there's a big difference in our industry between being self-employed and owning a business. And even if you own a $2 million business, you could still be self-employed, meaning that if you walk away from the business, you have no business because all the customers know you manage all the cash flow, all the systems depend on you. So that is more my question. How do you create a business without one person being in the middle, whether that's your key designer, or whether that's your operations guy, or whether that's you? So.
Well, hopefully that's what we tried to share a little bit today, of course, is, some of those things that you need to be doing, I think is part of the plan. It's funny, when asked to sit on the panel, I ended up doing some stuff, and it's, are you working in your business, working on your business, or are you working out of your business? And I don't think we ever heard about working out of your business for many years. You always hear, are you working on your business? Well, maybe working on your business is the worst thing you can be doing. I don't know that question's ever been raised, but, I think the one thing is, a lot of the answer was about operational. We do a fair amount of acquisitions. This industry, especially like in commercial grounds maintenance as an example, if you're the rainmaker, that's a big issue, right? If you're doing $2 million worth of business, I don't want to look that direction, and you're the seller, and you have the relationships, and you don't come with that business, I'm going to discount that business significantly, or I'm going to put a performance incentive into the next 12 to 18 months that I get that business after I give you some money. So I think that's where it is. Operationally, it's not such a big deal, but if you're the rainmaker that has all the relationships and you're doing all the selling, that's the challenge I have as a buyer in retaining those customers, is if you don't come with me, that's the big challenge that I would have. So I would try to avoid being the rainmaker, key salesperson, or have something in place that helps overcome it.
Unless
you're willing to take a concession.
Unless you do what he says, which is you don't take as much cash up front.
Right.
You do a 12 to 24, I do 24 months,
Yeah.
nicer than me. 24-month backside, right, that's incentivized. There's ways to work around.
Steve, I'll chime in here just a bit. That's basically what I was talking about earlier in our strategic planning that we're doing right now. And knowing what your product is that would be marketable and having something tangible, those of us or those of you who are in a business model where it's a maintenance portfolio, where you have a client base that's a repeatable, tangible product that you can work through is different than a design build firm company or something where, for instance, a few years back when it was Scott Deemer, who was the face of outdoor Craftsmen alone, it was not a very valued business because if I wasn't there, who would they go to? And so in my business development, I have been grooming my team to be able to run this organization without me being quote unquote outdoor craftsman. And so I think that's maybe what you were asking.
Yeah.
So developing a team around you that can fulfill the organizational and product goals that you're trying to achieve is the way that you can work your way out of that. And having a product that is sellable.
We'll wrap it up so you guys can get out of here and Rich can go get his kids. But thanks for being here. Appreciate everybody taking time today. Thank these guys a lot. They took a lot of time out of preparing